Hello, welcome to another Unity game dev video. Still working on that snake game that I was working on before. Decided that the system I had in place, the script that allows the body segments to follow behind the head, was not exactly what I wanted. The issues I had with it was the body segments would kind of close the loops of if the body made kind of an arc, instead of it following that arc all the way through and with all the body segments, that arc would slowly decrease back into the straight line of the snake. And the reason that happened was they were physics objects that were just lerping into the next part of the array. So the 10th part of the array was lerping to the position of the 9th part of the array, 9th to the 8th, 8th to the 7th, etc. And that wasn't exactly how I wanted it to work. So I've been retooling it, and this is what I have so far. So I'm going to show you it. I'm just going to press play, and right off the bat I am focusing on this head of the snake here. As you can see, these little yellow dots are being instantiated behind it as it moves. These are kind of the new waypoint system I have for making the body segments follow the head. So if we look down into the inspector, I have a target object script, and that's what's spawning these waypoints. If I look here, there's a distance variable. That's how far the head of the snake is to the last waypoint, and minimum distance to spawn. So right now it's set to 0.5, so every 0.5 units it will spawn a new waypoint. And just so it doesn't spawn like 3 at once it gets past that point, I have a current time and minimum time to spawn variable. So there won't be any overlapping. It won't spawn like 10 of these waypoints at once instantly as it gets past the minimum distance and resets. So if I hold space, I'll spawn these body segments. So here are the body segments, and they're following perfectly. I think it looks really nice. Spawn some more. I think it's a lot smoother than before. There's a lot of blurring from the speed of the last setup I had, but I have a lot of interesting features incorporated into this new script. So let's just take a look at them. If I slow down, let's just get a lot of stuff to look at here first. Some path that's visible within the preview window. So here's all this path here, and then I'll stop, and then let's just take a look at it. So everything is following until it reaches that. The reason it is kind of marching, just like marching from one point to the next without doing it kind of smoothly, is moving very slowly. In the game, that's never going to happen, so it's not really a worry right now. But I have a few variables that I have in a different script that can do interesting things. So right here, if I go to the level area script, I have this spacing multiplier. And what that does is I can control the spacing of the body segments and the snake. So if I bring that down to 0, they're all just in the one spot there. But if I bring it up to 1, they're all one distance away from each other. If I bring it up to 2, 2 distance, 3, so on and so forth. And I think I did some interesting math in the script to make that work. So I'll show that off in a little bit. But yeah, see how it's very smoothly following it when it's at a decent speed. This is probably the average speed that the character is going to be moving at in the actual game. So let's just stop the game for a second. So what I have here, let me angle it, there we go. So let's just jump into the scripts. This level script here, similar to how I had the arrays built in the last script. So let's just look at the variables. I have the speed. That's going to control how quickly it lerps to the waypoints. Spacing multiplier, I was just talking about that. I'll show you how that's used later. This game object level size is, in this game, generally the ground is mostly always going to be a flat plane. So I'm just using the script to find the size of that plane and then create the trigger box that encompasses the whole map to find the objects for the array. I don't use any find object of type or anything like that. I'm just having a on trigger enter that is encompassing the entire level. This level height, just using it to set the height of the level, because I can't really set the height by having it match the dimensions of the ground plane, because the ground plane is 1 unit tall. So I'll show how that works too. Here are the what is it called? Arrays. Here's the array of waypoints and the array of body segments called follow parts. This is just the max amount in each of them, that's so I can tune it at some point. I never really expect the amount of body segments in the follow parts array to ever reach the amount that I was just demonstrating, so I don't really like to set that too high. Probably 200 is a good limit. Or I could have it set to some dynamic array that just changes its size as elements are added to it. I'll probably do that later. So at the start, the transform scale, this script is attached to the that hitbox, that trigger box I was talking about. So it's saying the transform.local scale to new vector 3 level size x, the level height, and level size z. And it's saying the position to the level size x, level size z, and level height divided by 2. So it's saying the position to half the height of the level height, so it's in the direct middle. That makes sense, right? Here are the what's called arrays. Keep forgetting arrays for some reason. So in the update function, I have a for loop going through the array of the follow parts, and it is having the follow part in the for loop, the I variable, lerping its current location to waypoints c minus 1 minus I times the space multiplier. Now that sounds overly complicated for no reason, but I'll explain why it's working. So the c variable I have is it's just adding it's just a integer set to 0, and I have the same thing for this v variable, and it's adding 1 every time that it's grabbing something and adding it to the array. So I'm just getting the actual size of the array instead of using the dot length. I'm just getting it through an integer that's using this adding variable. So this is the total amount in the array for the waypoints. So the way the waypoints are working, obviously the waypoint closest to the target object is not going to be waypoint 1. That is going to be the most recent waypoint, so it is the highest number in the waypoint array. So if there's 30 waypoints, c is going to equal 30. So we are taking that, minusing 1, because I believe, because since it's adding 1 each time, it's not actually getting the array position perfectly, because there is a 0th index in the array. So just subtracting 1 from that so that it lines up perfectly with it. And then we are minusing I times the spacing multiplier. So for the I in the for loop, it is going through the body segment section. So it is taking the full amount of the body sections, and it is taking the index of which segment it is on, and then it is multiplying it by the spacing multiplier. So if we are the third body segment, and the spacing multiplier is, say, 5, it's going to lerp to the 15th index to the C amount of the waypoints array So the last part of the array minus that index times the space multiplier. So each time it is positioning the part from the body segments, it is spacing them. And this is just grabbing stuff for the arrays. So it's grabbing the when those objects are instantiated, they're instantiated at layer 9. It finds out if the object is layer 9. It grabs the object, renames it the waypoint plus that C variable .toString. So you can see that right here. So I spawn them, waypoint 0, segment 0, and it's kind of cluttered. I'll find a way in script to put those, create those as child objects of an empty object or something like that. But if we go back into the script, it's on layer 9. And then it checks if it's on layer 9. And then it once it does all the functions for adding it to the array, it changes the layer number to 10 so that we don't get duplicates in the array. And then it adds to the C value so that we're on the second index of the waypoint array and we're adding something else to a different section of the array instead of overlapping it. And the target object array, these are just very temporary controls I've added so I can move it around to further demonstrate how it follows. Here's the minimum distance to spawn. So it's checking the distance to spawn and the current time, and it's instantiating it if it meets those criteria. So that's about it for that. So I'll just jump back into the thing, find the target object, follow it, and I'll just demonstrate one more time. So here we go. It is following this target object, the head of the snake. It's targeting it very well. I don't really have an example right this second for getting off the ground to show that jump, so I'll try and just jump off of this tiny ramp. Might not be successful. There we go. So now you can see that arc is going to maintain itself until every single part of the array goes through it. It's not going to fall over time or anything like that. So, because it's still following those waypoints, and that waypoint objects are kinematic and they're not going to move. So, is it kinematic or kinesthetic? Kinematic. So yeah, those aren't going to move. So I like the way this is working so far. Probably not going to have the distance so far, so I can decrease the, actually that's nice. I like the distance right there, but I'm still pretty proud of the math that goes into that spacing multiplier there. It's nice that you could change it on the fly like this. Oh, I had it in the negative value, that's why I was getting confused. There we go. I could have it like an outrageous spacing like that. And of course, the faster the target object moves, the harder it'll work to lerp those objects. So the faster the body segments will move. So even with this outrageous spacing multiplier that I have here, they're still trying really hard to get to the object. So let's just decrease that spacing again. There you go. And that's a new script for the body segments of the snake. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.